Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to the Weekend Wellness Hour show. I'm very excited to talk about plants and herbs today with a new acquaintance whom I met just a few months ago, Carmen Adams, who is a registered herbalist out of Las Vegas and does wonderful things for clients all over. And really excited to have her on today. Thank you so much for joining us, Carmen.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
This is exciting. I'm always interested in the natural world, and having you come on and talk about different ways we can use plants and herbs and other tinctures to improve our health is something exciting to me. And I know that it has helped you. So can you share with us a little bit about your background and how you even got into this field?
Well, I always knew that I would be in the medical field. It goes all the way back to high school, going to a magnet high school. And fast forward, I knew I wanted to become a pediatrician. I love children, and I feel that not only children and elderly deserve the most respect. Children are just finding their way, and the elderly used to take care of themselves or maybe their own children themselves. So I decided to seek out alternatives when I found out that I was expecting. So it went from wanting to become a pediatrician to, there are certain things that I don't plan to do to my own. Let's dive a little bit deeper. And that opened me up to a variety of programs and opportunities. And I always say words don't teach, as experience. So even though I am formally trained, it was the internships, the fellowships, and simply becoming my own first client that really allowed the information to stick. I had my own health challenges, from digestive complaints, menstrual issues, acne, weight gain, anxiety, depression, and modern medicine or allopathic medicine just was not necessarily the journey wholeheartedly. Yes, it was a part of the journey, but it was definitely not my go-to. And again, as I became my first client, I began to teach others. And that sparked this passion, because to see someone change simply by epigenetic factors or factors outside of their genetics, such as lifestyle changes, dietary changes, positive internal dialogue, maintaining or enforcing boundaries, it's been amazing to bear witness to people's evolution. So it's something that I will definitively do for the rest of my life.
That's great. And when you're naming some of those health challenges that you were going through, was there a common thread of something was off hormonally, or was it just a combination of things that you said, oh, okay, we can target it through herbs?
100%. So birth control, that did me dirty. It did not resonate with my body. My body fought back against it, not only the depot shot, but the Mirena. And then with anxiety, I learned positive internal dialogue. I learned the importance of addressing toxic relationships and honoring boundaries. So it was really mind, body, spirit backed by science. So there is no cookie cutter way to address a person's discomfort. You meet them where they are and you grow from there.
Okay, that's amazing. And for you to shift, and I'm sure it was nice to get rid of a lot of chemicals out of your body in terms of synthetic ones to help your body heal and shift out of that. So that's amazing.
Yes, I became what you call estrogen dominant. And with the estrogen dominance came fibroids and cysts. And thankfully, surgery was not necessary, but it did take time herbally, making lifestyle changes, going to therapy. All of that played a factor. Chiropractics, occupational therapy from injuries that hadn't healed, you name it. So you're more than just a set of symptoms. You can address mind, body, spirit while backing it by science. Because why guess when you can know? You don't know if you're nutrient deficient or have a hormonal imbalance. That's where labs come into play. We live in a day and age where we have the technology to do so. So why not? So that's one of the reasons why I incorporated that into my style of teaching others about where they are in their journey to create health.
And that's an important distinction. What you're saying is this type of modality, this herbalism that you're using, it's a complement to other types of healthcare as well, which it's nice because you can approach, it's a multi-pronged approach. to allow a person to shift and probably transform a little bit faster than if you just did one thing at a time.
100%. And in emergent situations, allopathic or modern medicine definitely have its merit. If my arm is hanging off, please get me to the nearest ER. There's not enough comfrey root in the world to make those cells regenerate quick enough. You know what I mean? So it's my goal to teach others that you are in charge of what healthcare journey you wish to partake in. And your doctor works for you. If they're not listening to your concerns, if you feel that they're not digging deeper, fire your doctor and hire someone else. And I know that's easier said than done, but at the end of the day, you must become an active participant in your role, in your healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely understand that. So in your field, how did you learn all this information? I assume there's some type of schooling or coursework that you do. And can I give us a little bit of background on herbalism, if you don't mind?
Sure. So I attended the Dr. Christopher School of Natural Healing. I attended University of Central Florida. That's where I got primarily my science background. I am currently enrolled in the Kingdom College of Natural Health. I'm pursuing my doctorates in medicinal herbalism just to continue to expand my knowledge. I have a number of naturopathic physicians, not only as friends and colleagues, but those that have taught me along the way. I have chiropractors as friends and colleagues, MDs, nurse practitioners. So I chose to immerse myself in that particular industry because I do feel and have lived that allopathic medicine and natural medicine can work hand in hand. So what better way than building these relationships with these individuals so that I may refer to them, because my scope is my scope. I do not diagnose, I do not treat, I simply teach you based on my personal and clinical experience, and we grow from there. You do the work, I am simply a guide.
I understand that. And that's hard sometimes because we want someone just to say, do this, and we do this, but it's a little bit harder to learn the lessons and then apply them, but it's more rewarding.
Of course. And I always say I practice what I teach. There's one thing about me that I don't like to be a hypocrite. So when I began to learn the different things I would be teaching other parents when it comes to pediatrics, and I knew I wouldn't necessarily take that same advice, that was my catalyst to continue to look other places.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what is all involved in herbalism? So I imagine there's different, obviously there's herbs and you're using the herbs. Are you forming different powders or capsules or tinctures? What does more of the science part of that look like?
So there are different ways to consume herbs. There are tinctures. It can be alcohol-based. It can be vinegar-based. It can be a glyceride or glycerin. It can be honey. There are different ways to administer said herbs so that the medicinal value or the nutrients can be transferred from the herb into the particular media stream. There can be capsules, there can be powders. Yes, you can encapsulate powders. I always ask clients, do you like to swallow capsules? Will you take something that does not taste good? Because most tinctures do not taste good, most of them.
No.
I teach about effective supplementation because all supplements are not created equal. The ingredients and the dosing strategy is important, especially the other ingredients. So don't just read what they're claiming that's in it. Read the other ingredients and do your due diligence. Ask them, are their supplements potentially cross-contaminated? Do they not share machinery, but are other things processed on that particular machinery? For instance, gluten. My clients that are diagnosed with celiac disease, these are questions I must ask those supplement companies so that that person doesn't hurt themselves while attempting to help themselves. You can do fomentations, which is basically a tea applied topically. You can do salves, which are ointments, and you can do oils. You can do, there's so many different, you can do poultices. Poultices are like a clay. Just imagine a clay and you apply it topically. And there are a variety of reasons why you would do each of these particular solutions. I primarily teach about teas, tinctures, and ointments unless the need arises where I teach someone about something else, and obviously capsules due to supplementation, but that's typically through a third party. I'm not necessarily a brand.
Okay, this is amazing. So do you make these tinctures yourself or do you help someone find a company that makes them?
I would do both. So
Okay.
I order tinctures in bulk, and I personally blend them based on the formulation I deem appropriate, based on their desired outcome, based on what medications they're on, because pharmaceutical companies do not make their medications with herbs in mind. So there are contraindications, ways that there can be a negative interaction, or maybe it can impact the liver, and that particular medication has a particular half-life, and you consuming, say, milk thistle or dandelion that's stimulating the liver, and it negatively impacting your body's ability to utilize that whatever medication said physician has prescribed to you. So it's an art to it. You don't have to over complicate it, but you can do it wrong, and you can do it to where safety could be a concern.
Right. And I can imagine you have to be up on medications too, to know interactions for people.
Well, it's also the beauty of living in the information age. I do not know everything. It's one thing to memorize, but it's another thing to know where to source the information. And that's what I teach my mentees. You don't have to memorize. The information will eventually stick with experience, but in the meantime, know those reputable sources so that you can either refresh your memory or just simply continue educating yourself.
Right. Oh, that's amazing. Okay. So let's say I show up at your door or we do a virtual session. What does that look
Mhm.
like? Let's say I have diabetes and I want some help just getting my health improved overall and to become more active. What does a consultation look like with you and how is that structured?
Okay, well, first and foremost, I require that any client that's interested in working with me to schedule a qualifying screening call. I do not take on just anyone. I always say all money isn't good money. However, some people simply want a quick fix, and that's not something I'm going to sell to you. There are plenty of people that do believe that this one herb is all you need, or this 5 set of herbs is all everyone needs. And my experience has led me to understand that's not the case. So my goal is to see, based on my experience and based on your desired outcome, would we be complementary to one another? Are we in alignment? And the questions that I ask will help me make that particular decision. So by the conclusion of that 15-minute phone call, I would let you know if you are eligible for the next step, which is a new client strategy session. And that strategy session is 45 minutes in length. And again, I'm asking more questions about your overall goal. What have you tried? What are your doctors doing that's helping? Where do you still feel you have room for improvement? How can I best support you? Because at the end of the discussion, I will know how I at least think I would start with you. But at the end of the day, it's up to you. It's your journey. Again, I am a guide to get you preferably safely to your desired outcome, but I can't promise that. Again, I don't treat, I just simply teach you what my experience has taught me, and you decide what resonates with you and you can then apply. I then continue to teach because my alternative care plans for educational purposes build on each other. So you become your own client.
That makes sense. Yes. And then obviously, so let's say I would need some type of herbs to help with, like, let's say the diabetes. Are the next step taking certain labs that give you information, or are there certain herbs that typically would help with diabetes?
100% labs. Let's
Okay.
see where you are. What is your hemoglobin A1C? Let's look at your blood sugar over the past 3 to 4 months. What is your fasted glucose? I want to know, what is your lipid panel? How is your thyroid? It's all to look at function, because we're holistic beings. We're not just a set of symptoms. We're not someone that just simply has an A1C that does not want to go down. Obviously, there are always exceptions to the rule, but at the end of the day, there's more going on. And with one of my mentors by the name of Dr. Hanale, he always says the body works with sophisticated simplicity. The body doesn't need much, but it needs what it needs. And again, why guess when you can know? Everyone has bio-individuality. So again, I meet you where you are. If you're not ready to do an overhaul with dietary changes, I'm very frank with tempering your expectations, but every step is at least heading in, hopefully, in the direction you're hoping to go.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I can imagine just learning these things and taking the next steps, it's really empowering. And when someone starts to begin certain different herbs, the response that happens, for some people, I would imagine it's a little bit faster, maybe others it's a little bit slower based on the body chemistry. Is that correct?
100%. I also like to share that I've learned we heal in 21 day cycles or a lunar cycle. Before you necessarily just simply discredit your approach, give it consistently 21 days. You should at least feel an increase of energy, maybe some brain fog lifting, something that's showing you that maybe the inflammation that you may be experiencing is decreasing, but you should feel something. And if you don't feel something, that's when we start to talk about other things that you could do. I don't know if I answered your question. Could you repeat it?
Yeah, that was it. I was curious, like, how quickly does something start to take effect?
And okay, so it really depends. How long have you been dealing with the issue? How high is your hemoglobin A1C? Are you expecting it to get below 6.0 in a month? I'm going to tell you I am not the person for you, because I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to be realistic. The body works the way it works. Give it time. Support it. There are a variety of entry points, whether you need the support from a chiropractor due to biomechanical misalignments. Maybe you need to go to a therapist because you've been in a toxic relationship, so your inner dialogue is horrible. So you are stressed out, your adrenal glands are overworked. Maybe you have, you were on birth control from the age of 15 to 35, and now you're wanting to conceive, but you're having issues. And no one is explaining to you the role of the thyroid in conceiving. So I like to not only debunk, but also educate. Not everyone understands how the body works and how it does indeed work together, because most times they're sent to a specialist, and not all the time that specialist talks to said doctor that sent that patient over there, or at least that's what I'm learning.
Yeah. And that's true. And sometimes we don't realize the habits that we have that contribute to some of the health concerns and the hormonal changes and thyroid changes. So education and showing little tiny shifts in, lifestyle can definitely make a difference. That's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. So if someone has a thyroid issue, are there specific common herbs that a person should start to look at?
Well, most people think of sea moss when they think of thyroid, like, ooh, iodine. And I always temper their expectation. Well, do you have an overactive or an underactive thyroid? Do you have what's called Graves' disease? So you have hyperthyroidism. If that's the case, iodine would not necessarily be your friend. So again, it's a case by case basis. And sometimes I feel people may think I talk around in a circle when it comes to what herb for this, and that's not the case. It's truly, where are you? What is the desired outcome? And then look at the medicinal action of said herb, and then we grow from there. So there's a nutrient profile you can consider if saying that could be helpful. But at the end of the day, what's going on with the individual? And there are many herbs that are mild. So please don't think you can't drink your herbal tea, you're doing something wrong. But say you are consuming turmeric, copious amounts of turmeric. Well, that's an amazing blood thinner. So if you're risk for falling, or you do some type of strenuous contact sport, I would hate for your blood to become too thin.
Yeah.
Not everyone considers that.
That's true. And turmeric is kind of the big herb right now for reducing inflammation.
Yeah, it has what some people say Vogue. It's like a front page of Vogue. There are different herbs that gain popularity for whatever reason, whether it's an influencer or a celebrity or some type of information that comes out. But look at its traditional uses, but also look at how it could potentially hurt you, and then make your decision from there.
Right, that makes sense. And what about, I know with the heart, there are certain herbs or chemicals that you shouldn't have. And so is it the same thing as with the thyroid? It depends on the person in terms of
Yeah, it
what you
depends
should
on.
have.
Yes. So, for instance, cardiovascular health, people ask all the time. And I would teach them about hawthornberry or motherwort. And motherwort I love. Its botanical name is Leonaris cardiaca, or lion heart. There's information that says it acts on the heart muscle in itself. And then I get feedback from those that consume said herb in a tea form, and they say, I don't know if it's working immediately or if it's a placebo effect, but I actually feel my heart rate increasing. And the last time I was at the physician, it was in its 40s when it traditionally is in 57 or higher. That's their experience, and it makes me smile. But do I think that can be replicated? It depends on the next person.
Right. Right. That's interesting. So obviously there's some consistency in terms of if, there's response to develop it into a science, but I can see where there's an art to it as well, that you're kind of putting this puzzle piece together for each person.
And the biggest thing is meeting them where they are. In the beginning of my journey, I found clients thought they needed to be perfect.
Yeah.
That is not the case. Progress, not perfection. First of all, I'm not going to judge you. You are where you are. My goal is for you to accept that fact, but then become clear on where you wish to go and then make the necessary steps to get there. I can't want it for you, but I can teach you and walk alongside you.
Mm-hmm. And for most of these different herbs that people are taking, is it a daily practice? And obviously, if you miss a day, the world doesn't fall apart, right?
100%. Consistency is key. So don't take an herb and like, oh, it doesn't work. I still feel the same. Well, how much did you take? What form did you take? Where did you source it? And what was your desired outcome? Because maybe you could have taken some other nutrients that could have been complementary. Maybe there was something else going on and you picked the wrong herb. Don't simply discredit it. Just try a different approach. There are so many entry points to healing. Some individuals, it's primarily a version of talk therapy that gets them through the chronic headaches. It wasn't just the B vitamin deficiency. It wasn't just the need for the chiropractic adjustment. It wasn't just from the previous TBI. They needed talk therapy in some cases where they needed a safe space to be able to fall apart and a person that they could trust take said information or said advice.
Mm-hmm. And do you ever see it where maybe if someone took a capsule, but their body just didn't absorb it correctly, but they needed it in a different form? Is that typical?
Well, yes and no. I would say I would recommend capsule as the method of administration, but that person didn't tell me they don't like to take capsules. So they simply didn't take it because they don't like to swallow capsules. Just because it's a pretty treatment plan on paper, if it's not realistic to your daily routine, your desired method of consuming a supplement, you're not going to do it. So there's more questions like, do you want to swallow said capsule? Tinctures are more potent, in my opinion, versus needing to take copious amounts of capsules to get the same dosage. However, again, tinctures don't taste good. If they're alcohol-based, and I've had individuals that are diagnosed with ulcers, so we avoided alcohol-based things until that ulcer reversed itself in so many words.
Yeah. I would probably be in the ones where I couldn't handle the tinctures in terms of the alcohol. I've tried that stuff and capsules all the way.
Understood. I prefer powders and tinctures. I don't care for capsules. I think it's a mental thing.
Probably. But like you said, however it gets it down into and can provide the benefit. So for most things, is it better for taking it with food or without food?
I would say like multivitamins, definitely with food. I've found not only personally, it makes you feel like you have morning sickness all over again, that copious amounts of nutrient dosing on an empty stomach. Some people prefer it that way and they don't experience it. Some people experience it like I do. And if I'm taking a multivitamin, I'm going to eat. So sometimes you don't know until you know, but most times I recommend with food for sure.
Okay. And then when someone's starting a process like this, do you ease into it and do one or two at a time? Or if they have multiple issues and they require multiple different types of herbs or capsules, do you start them on several at once?
Again, it depends on the person. However, to answer your question, with there being various entry points to healing, I like to address one thing at a time. Sometimes you address one thing and other things can fall into balance. However, what I like to ask, what is your worst symptom? Let's start there. Let's get you over that hump so that That'll help reinforce your why, and then we can grow from there. So most times I'll start with, well, what is your worst symptom? Because I know what I would consider my worst symptom if I were experiencing what they're experiencing, but they're not me.
Yeah, right. And then how does the nutrition part of it come in? Because you're also a certified holistic nutritionist as well, correct?
Well, yes, that is correct.
So do you kind of tie that in with working with someone on these herbs to match their nutrition with the herbs and try to, shift them and give them even more guidance?
Yes, so I do offer nutrition support, and the reason being is because we become what we can assimilate, not just what we consume, it's what our body actually can absorb. And that opens a whole list of places to start. So, do you need digestive enzymes? Are you experiencing excessive bloating, gas, diarrhea, constipation? All of that plays a part as well. If you are experiencing a particular organ or gland that's not functioning optimally, I will teach you about certain nutrients. And then those nutrients, I'll teach you about foods that contain said nutrients. And then I teach you about quality of food matters and why GMO is not necessarily your friend and why organic is best and it's nutrient dense. But at the same time, I understand your reservations. So again, I meet the person where they are. I share the information. They take what resonates. And again, we grow from there. But what we consume, as well as what we speak to ourselves, definitely matters.
And what would you say to someone who says they don't believe organic is any better, that it's just expensive food, and there are studies out there that show there's no difference in nutrient content or nutrient absorption? How do you address that? Because that's something that I've heard very often. And I switched to organic many years ago. I could feel a difference, but I haven't done all the studies. I haven't looked at all the studies out there. So, and no one really has probably looked at every single study, but I'm just curious what your response would be to that.
I encourage them to go to ewg.org. It's a third party. They do their own analysis, research regarding pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and how it can negatively impact the body, the nutrient density of organic and conventionally grown food, and follow the money. So if a particular study was not funded by X, Y, or Z, that could be a study that would be more reputable than a study that was funded by something that may have wanted to sway the results.
Okay, that's good. Thank you for providing that, because I can taste a difference, and
Yes.
I actually have felt a difference, but it's hard to convince someone of that otherwise when all they see is someone trying to rip them off and charge them more money for something. So it's hard to get someone to change their mindset, which I think is part of the journey for that person.
See, I've learned that words don't teach, experience teaches. So say they do everything right, but they have yet to change the quality of food and they haven't reached their desired outcome. My question would be, are you ready to change the food to see if that's the missing link? It's up to them. Otherwise, if that's a change they're just simply not ready to make and they don't think it's going to be effective, there's nothing I can say to convince them otherwise. I present facts. They can take away or chew the meat and spit out the bones, so to speak, whatever resonates with them. I cannot change them. I present information in the matter I feel could be easily understood. I create space where you can ask me any questions, send me articles to get my opinion. But at the end of the day, you're going to do what is best in alignment with your desired outcome and what you feel is best. So I don't take it personally.
Yeah. And everyone, they have their own journey to go through, but
yes,
it's nice to have you as a resource so that we can gather the information and make better choices for ourselves and our health. So really appreciate this. And then do you work with people both in person and virtually?
Yes, I do. So if you're in Las Vegas, local or otherwise, you can come into my office. And if you say across state lines or even across one of the lovely ponds, you can still reach me. Time difference would be kind of interesting to work out, especially my clients in London and in Spain, but it is possible.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about that we didn't really cover regarding this topic?
Let's see. Let's see. I would say dosing strategy matters,
Okay.
quality matters.
Okay.
And just because you read it on the internet, it does not mean it is true. And I know that may seem elementary to say, but the amount of questions that I get that are very similar in nature, just because it's on Google or on someone's blog, it does not make it true for you because you have a similar or same diagnosis. It's not necessarily the case. Do it safely. You can do herbalism wrong. You
Okay.
can do just simply stopping your medication cold turkey because now you want to incorporate herbs. That can send you to the hospital, if not to the grave. And I say that because it is a true reality. I've had an individual that did not have a thyroid, but another holistic practitioner told them they don't need to take their thyroid medication, and that person did not make it.
Ooh. Okay.
Yes. So my goal is not everything is that that
Yeah.
dark or whatnot, but at the end of the day, it could be. And do you want that liability? So that is another reason why I mentor budding herbalists.
Right. And that actually, this conversation drew up another question. What are some indications that a person would come work with you in terms of conditions, symptoms? Like, what would guide a person to reach out to you?
Usually they're just simply tired.
Okay.
Their get up and go has got up and went, and they don't know where to start. And then I explained to them fatigue could be a symptom of a variety of things, and that's where the unpacking starts. The detailed health histories, the review of the medical records, the education of the biomarkers I would look at and the why. Then it's the education of what their biomarkers mean to me, and feel free to get said second opinion. I meet them where they are. I walk them through my process. And if by the end of our program, they feel they can take it from there and go off into the world and do what it is they do, beautiful. The biggest compliment is when you no longer need me. But if you feel that it would be an asset to keep me as an accountability partner, I offer continuity programs so that I can still be that beacon of light.
That's great. That's wonderful. And it kind of ties into how can people reach you?
Well, my website is energy, INNERGY, med, MED, group, GROUP.com. My social media handles for Instagram is at Energy Med Group. I am also on TikTok at Energy Med Group as well. I believe there is a Twitter there that I'm not as active on, so forgive me. And you can find me on Facebook as well on energymedicalgroup.com. So
Okay. Really appreciate, and thank you so much for your time here today. Great information. Very excited to share this with everyone, and I hope people reach out to you. Thank you so much for your time.
thank you. I appreciate your time.
Wonderful. And thank you all for joining us today. Have a great rest of your weekend. Please reach out to Carmen. We'll have all of our information out there for you. Take care and see you next week. Bye now.